Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on the ESPN app. Check us out at Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you get your podcasts. Go ahead and check us out. All right, we'll get you guys up on LeBron versus Lance and the hilarity of LeBron James having to acknowledge Lance Stephenson is something halfway to an equal. Another interesting situation with the NFL, their domestic violence policy and why that thing is so tricky. And we'll talk about Prince 2 years after he passed away. But first, oh boy, Russ. I was just talking to Gabe as we were coming in here. You know, me and Gabe are kind of new to this, so I have to explain to him some things about me from time to time. I fear from time to time that I am a Russell Westbrook apologist. I do not believe myself to be a Russell Westbrook apologist. However, I am often in a situation where I have to be a Russell Westbrook defender, and I have to be a Russell Westbrook defender because we react in such polar extremes to all things Russell Westbrook. The Russell Westbrook that just a year ago was fan favorite because he was so relentless, and that is in part what led him to stick around Oklahoma City after Kevin Durant had jetted out. And then he decided Kevin Durant was a little bit of soft, so, you know, cupcake, isn't that what they call it? So then you decided that you like Russell Westbrook. Okay, cool. So Westbrook winds up on a team with Paul George. They get Carmelo Anthony. He's got some people around him. The year hasn't exactly gone the way that people expected, even though Russ averaged a triple-double again, though somehow this year's triple-double wasn't as impressive as last year's triple-double, even though they were both triple-doubles. But anyway, they were down 2-1 to the Utah Jazz in this series. Ricky Rubio set Russ. I don't even know if it's fair to say he set Russ on fire, though Russ was the guy who was guarding him, because as quiet as it's kept, when Ricky Rubio put up that 26-point triple-double, he was still 2 for 9 from three-point range, right? Like, it's not like Ricky Rubio turned into some entirely different human being. Probably had a little bit too much room to operate, too much space, and then Russ said he was going to shut that bleep down. That's what he said. They caught it right after the game. Now, understand this. There's no player of Russell Westbrook's caliber that after a game where somebody like Ricky Rubio puts up like 26 points is not going to be asked to say something like that, or is not going to be inclined to say something like that. Like, I took that as just funny Russ stuff. And then Russ came out here and he did, in fact, shut Ricky Rubio down. The Thunder also got smoked. No way around it. They got the brakes beaten off of them. And of course, that then means the polar swing against Russell Westbrook. I saw something somebody had on the Twitter last night. I think this guy is the radio voice of the Mavericks. And he was like, "What? There's a difference between playing with passion and playing with anger. And one day Russell Westbrook will understand this." Like, people talk to you about Russ in these moments like Russ has never done anything well. People talk to you about Russ as though since the 2011 season, every time that he's been there with the Thunder, when he had Kevin Durant, if Durant and Ibaka were both out there on the floor with nobody being hurt, they made it to the conference finals every time that happened from 2011 to 2016. Last year, I mean, what are they going to do, right? Like, Russell Westbrook and a bunch of dudes. This year, again, not a bunch of dudes. But what remains the case is, as long as Russell Westbrook exists, it's his fault and nobody else's. Never fails. So Paul George, right? Remember we used to pick on Paul George last year because Paul George had never made the game-winning shot and then had a commercial with a game-winning shot in it. Remember that? Okay, Paul George had 6 turnovers last night where Russell Westbrook had 5. If I were to ask you which one of those guys was more out of control, you would probably wind up saying Russell Westbrook. They went and got Carmelo Anthony, and I thought that one thing that helped the Thunder about having him is they had 3 guys who could get their own shot. Melo is cooked. Like, I don't know how anyone could look at the stats he put up this year or look at what happened with him last night at 5 for 18 performance he put up. He's donezo. D-U-N done. There's no way around that. Like, what happened with the Thunder last night looked as much as anything else to me as a collective effort to fail. Everybody was involved in this. And, by the way, this stretches up to the dude in the suit who, all right, look, we would all acknowledge Scott Brooks not a very good coach. Can we all say that? It's fair. It's cool. We would all acknowledge that Scott Brooks not a very good coach. Has Billy Donovan been any better at coaching this team than Scott Brooks was?
I don't think anyone knows. Like, it's hard to tell whether Billy Donovan's a good coach or not. I feel like everybody's asking that question.
But I feel like if it's hard to tell, the answer is no.
You're probably right about that.
That's a safe guess on that one. But what have you seen? The same sets that don't get anything happening late that wind up with guys pounding the ball at the top of the key. Does it look any different now? Now, the question that you wind up with, though, is how much of that is Russell Westbrook and just the intractability of Russell Westbrook. But I know early in the Brooks run, like we're looking at 2011, 2012 in that run, they would be running sets and nobody would be open. I saw times last night where you see Russ with the ball up top and you see cutters going through. Nobody winds up open. Nobody's in a place to wind up getting the ball. That being said, Russell Westbrook decided he was going to shut down Ricky Rubio, and Kenny Smith made this point on TNT last night, and he was dead right about this. He's like, look, man, shutting down Ricky Rubio can't be the plan. Shutting down Donovan Mitchell is probably what should be the plan. Now, Donovan Mitchell put up 33 on 28 shots. It should be noted, right? Let me tell you something else I love about NBA fans. We love volume shooters when they're new, right? When volume shooters are new, we just get to enjoy what it is that they're doing and watch the pageantry of the one-on-one game and everything else. Let Utah start losing something down the line, and then all of a sudden you're going to realize, oh, snap, I forgot we don't like volume shooters. Like 33 points on 28 shots is not good. It's not. There's no way around it. That's not to say the dude's a bad player or anything, but 33 points on 28 shots, no. That's not something that you should aspire to. Now, maybe part of it is they are asking that dude to carry the offense, but that would be the explanation for why it wasn't that good, as opposed to it, like, look, nobody in this series really, like, individually has been great. And that includes Donovan Mitchell, who has been very good, but I wouldn't go so far as to say great. But do you really think that loss last night was Russell Westbrook's fault? Because I just don't.
He was out for a good portion of the second half after 4 fouls in the first half.
By the way, that reminds me, speaking of Billy Donovan, right? Yeah, Russell Westbrook is headstrong. Yeah, nobody wants to tell Russell Westbrook what to do. He don't want anybody to tell him what to do. After that bogus second foul, which I guess it wasn't so much bogus. The second foul is the one where Rubio kind of baited him into running into him on the inbound, and then Rubio went down. The third one was bogus. Like, I thought the block was clean. I don't think that that's a call that you make in the postseason. The fourth one was reckless. The fourth one's why you don't leave a guy out there with 3. Especially not a guy like him. Because it was a go-hard play, right? Ball's loose, you're going to go try to get it. Boom, they wind up calling the foul. Now, the problem that you wind up with Russ having 4 fouls is, what do you get when he has 4 fouls? You get a guy that can't play aggressively. And what is he if he's not playing aggressively? In that third quarter, what happened? They got their doors blown off. That was what happened in the course of that. And that's where I look at Billy Donovan. You can't leave a dude out there for that long. I don't care what you're concerned about bringing off the bench. There's no point in having him out there if he's going to be basically with one arm tied behind his back, which is what it is to play with 4 fouls.
Is that the Thunder's fault for not getting a decent backup point guard that can actually play and sub in for us? Because I think they got Ray Felton over there right now.
Yeah, and I think Felton is still, like, okay, but this is what I feel like about going to Ray Felton and Russ not being out there. Paul George is a superstar-esque player. Like, I don't think he's a superstar, but like a superstar-adjacent sort of player. He's supposed to be the one to hold it down under those circumstances. Like, there should not be a time where if you've got Paul George on the roster that you feel like, damn, we absolutely have to have Russell Westbrook out here all this time in the course of this foul trouble. And again, I don't care if Russ is going to snarl at you when you take him out the game. Man up and take him out the game. That's what it's got to be. Like, that's why to me to look at this whole thing and just be like, oh man, you can't win with Russell Westbrook. They've actually done a great deal of winning over the last 10 years with Russell Westbrook. They have. Now, again, was a lot of that with Kevin Durant? Sure, it was with Kevin Durant. But hey, man, they got Paul George in here now. I feel like you need to look at the dude in the suit as much as you need to look at Russell Westbrook. But when you look at Russell Westbrook, yeah, probably a little bit too concerned with shutting Ricky Rubio down. Ricky Rubio ain't got that much attention since he left Spain. He hasn't. He's like, oh yeah, look at me, Ricky Rubio. Hey, over there, Donovan Mitchell. You know, like, it wasn't a good look. Also, Gabe, my man, Joe Ingles.
You're making his name even more foreign than it is?
Yes, I am. What had happened was when Joe Ingles first got to the league, I was living in Miami. So when I see Ingles, that's Ingles. Yeah. And then I find out that he's actually Australian, and then I decided just to keep calling him Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles is getting his full fan favorite on, by the way. Hitting those corner threes, back-talking people.
Oh, he's baiting PG.
Yes.
Every possession. Hitting a 3, staring him down.
And you know what I take that to mean? Joe Ingles can fight.
He looks like he can fight.
I don't know if I'm just working off some assumption about Australians. They seem to have a rough and tumble sort of background. Perhaps that's what it is. But yeah, Joe Ingles out there. They had Mitt Romney on the sideline with a jersey over his button-up.
Did you see it was a Rodney Hood jersey, by the way?
I did see it was a Rodney Hood jersey.
Talk about fan for sale right there. I saw a picture side by side of Mitt Romney holding up like a Celtics banner and then also like holding up the 4 fingers for 4 fouls.
He was there.
Oh my God.
Also, courtside at the Utah Jazz, I would love someone to do some sort of study or some sort of story on who is courtside at every NBA arena. Right? Because like the crowd in Miami is obviously different than the crowd in Oklahoma City, which is even different than the crowd in Utah. And the crowd in Utah is interesting in part because their DJ, I don't know if you noticed, man, he plays jams. Like he's out there playing Gangstar. He's out there playing the Woo. And see, he's doing this the right way. Cause look, man, them folks at Utah, I don't really so much feel like they come to the game to hear no rap music, but they understand it's the NBA. You're going to get some rap music. Now, some would probably think that as a result, you should probably play some rap music that is palatable to them that you would think perhaps some MC Hammer or maybe some Macklemore or something along those lines. Except the problem is they don't want to hear none of that rap music. They can't tell the rap music apart. That dude's out there playing like shadow boxing. The Jizza. What? At the Utah games. I watched the game once. It was the Celtics and the Jazz, and they were in Utah, and he was playing some Woo. And I was thinking, man, this Celtics players got to be like, damn, dog. Even the DJ in Utah knocks harder than our DJ does at the arena in Boston. Cause I feel like in Boston is the only NBA, games where they playing the same jams as they play for the hockey games. The same exact ones. It's like, is that some White Snake?
The best part about having NBA League Pass is in between action when they just go to the DJ.
Yes.
It's like the Toronto Raptors broadcast. There's like a DJ that hangs out there and he's just got like a cheerleader on each side of him and he's just like playing the music and the two girls are in there like same two-step for like a solid like 5 minutes during the commercial break because they don't want to air the local commercials.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. That's right on the street. You learn a lot about America and the NBA via the League Pass.
Oh, completely.
So much
and
about it.
To your point about, figuring out who the Utah Jazz fan is, I mean, they also show all these like kiss cam and all these different like dance cam things.
Yes.
And then it's like, wow, I just met a Utah Jazz fan now.
Yes. Yeah, by the way, before we move on, shout out to my man, the Tooth. Stephen Goldtooth Adams, who once again got hit in the face and was impervious to the fact, this time by Jay Crowder. One of these days, boy, the Tooth is gonna waylay somebody. And, I mean, I want to be there when it happens. I just hope it doesn't happen to me. LeBron James and Lance Stephenson. This thing is still going on here. So, to explain Lance Stephenson to you, I'm going to tell you a story about a gentleman by the name of Tyree Ricky Davis. I believe we had told this story about Tyree Ricky Davis before, but Tyree Ricky Davis, when he arrived in the NBA, was simply known as Ricky Davis. I know him as Tyree Ricky Davis because when my brother was in graduate school at the University of Iowa, he was always talking about this 15-year-old kid named Tyree Ricky Davis. And he said that he saw Tyree Ricky Davis from Davenport, Iowa, once go up off two legs and dunk on Brad Lohaus in a summer league game. Now, you may be thinking Brad Lohaus, Well, Brad Lohaus was still an NBA player, and Brad Lohaus was still 7 feet tall, and Tyree Ricky Davis was still 15 years old, and he yammed on Brad Lohaus while he was there. Now, Tyree Ricky Davis played 1 year at Iowa and then wound up in the NBA. But what happens with a lot of cats in the NBA is they form their image of what they were very, very early on, back when they were stars, and that never changes. So Ricky Davis was playing for the Cavs, and then the Cavs drafted LeBron James. And Ricky Davis, hand to God, was excited that they drafted LeBron James because he thought they went to get him so he would have some help. Like he thought, cool, they went and drafted somebody to help him. LeBron James been on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which Tyree Ricky Davis had never been on. LeBron, the biggest name out there, and Ricky Davis' whole thing is, at last, y'all got somebody to help me. Like the image that he has of himself starts from there. This is the transition into Lance Stephenson, a.k.a. Born Ready. And he was like the next dude to come out of Brooklyn, right? Like that was the thought, like New York City was all the way behind Born Ready. And he still thinks that he's Born Ready. Damn near didn't make it to the league with everything he did wrong on the way there. But I have never gotten the impression that Lance Stephenson ever stopped looking at himself as anything other than Born Ready. And so he looks at a cat like LeBron James. And you know what he's thinking when he see a cat like LeBron James? He's like, yo, that's supposed to be me. And you know why it's not him? Politics. You go ask every NBA player why it is it didn't go better for them. Politics. Right? Now Lance Stephenson is in this bizarre place where he has found one place in the NBA that really loves him. One city that wraps its arms around him. And of all places, it's Indiana. It is Indiana. Those people love to see the most ironic thing in the NBA, which is Lance Stephenson wearing one of them Hickory High School jerseys. Can you imagine what would have happened if Lance Stephenson would have walked in and said, hi, I want to register for Hickory High School. I'd like to play on the basketball team. That wouldn't happen. By the way, that would be a much better movie. Like, if we sub out Jimmy Chitwood for Lance Stephenson, you telling me we don't have a better movie? You telling me we don't have a more entertaining movie? Or at the very least, you telling me we don't have a movie with better music in it?
Every day of Lance Stephenson's life is like he got game.
Yes. Yes, I mean, he's basically that guy, except, well, not because schools were afraid to recruit Lance. They thought he was going to come to school and get, like, arrested. Greg Doyle made a very good point when it came down to the end with Lance Stephenson. He had never seen a player that good that nobody wanted to touch. Like, it took Under Armour finding a way to get him somewhere, but he'd never seen a player that good. But now he's matched up with LeBron all the time. And he comports himself in part like a troll, but also in part like he wants LeBron to respect him as some variety of equal, which is a notion that LeBron flatly rejects. I mean, you just listen to him talk about this dude.
Should never got a tech in the first place. I mean, there's a timeout call. This guy's following me to my bench. And then give him a little nudge, and he falls to half court. Come on. I should know better. I've been dealing with this since elementary. It's like I tell you a joke, I tell you a joke, and then you laugh and you get caught. That's what happened. Lance told me a joke. I laughed. Teacher called me. Now I got to go see the principal. So that's what happened.
This guy. He called him this guy, right? Like that. LeBron does not want to give him anything, but you got this cat. I guess he ain't blowing in his ear this year, but he's like, this guy. And so, in part, it's Lance trying to legitimize himself, and on the other end is LeBron's total dismissal of this idea. It's not terribly different than the Westbrook-Ricky Rubio situation, except LeBron is never going to be the one to be like, oh yeah, we're going to shut that down. LeBron is just like, oh, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me.
Well, and the difference is, too, is that Lance believes it, whereas Ricky Rubio is just like, yeah, drop 30 points, whatever.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just trying to do what I can for my team.
Yeah.
That's all it is, right?
Rocking a ponytail, whatever.
Yes, and so then you had Lance with that crazy attempt at the jump ball that the people in Indianapolis are still trying to swear wasn't a foul, which is just absurd to me. But this is where I think it's interesting with Lance and LeBron. And yeah, there's game analysis stuff, whatever, that'll work itself out. Cavs, problems. I give you that, problems. Jordan and even Kobe. Kobe had Ray Allen, which was like one of the underrated feuds in the NBA. But like Jordan had guys that would be like, what was it? Gerald Wilkins, who called himself the Jordan Stopper. And then Jordan went and put like a zillion points on him. And then you got the stories of, I think it was LeBradford Smith, where I think Mike invented in his mind something that LeBradford Smith has said and then put something like 40-something on him. Jerry Stackhouse once said that he beat Mike in pickup in North Carolina. Mike came out and put 48 on him. Like you have those like one-offs where Michael Jordan would just go and decide to destroy people. But there was no like lingering foil to Michael Jordan. There was no guy that just seemed to keep popping up as this dude that's just like an annoyance to Michael Jordan. He never had a Lance Stephenson. There's something highly entertaining about the fact that LeBron has a Lance Stephenson. And he's had a few. Remember Deshaun Stephenson. Deshaun Stephenson was LeBron's first Lance Stephenson. Because they had that one. What did he say when Deshaun Stephenson compared himself to LeBron? It's like comparing Jay-Z to Soulja Boy.
Oh, man. Deshaun Stephenson was one of my favorite players.
And by the way, Deshaun Stephenson, another example of the phenomenon I'm giving you with Lance Stephenson. Remember, Deshaun Stephenson came out of high school into the draft. Another guy whose image of self probably didn't he get the tattoo of Abraham Lincoln and the 5 on his neck?
The tattoos that he had, the team that he was on. I mean, that was the Pacers before the Pacers, right? Is that Wizards team?
Yes.
With Gilbert Arenas, too?
Yes. He got out did he get out just before it all went haywire? Because, finger guns and all of that?
I think so.
He got out just in time, but you're right. Like they were the post Trailblazers, except the Trailblazers actually won games. The Wizards were just being derelict. Like that's all I've got is that
first round exit every year against the Cavs, pretty much.
Right, but Deshaun Stephenson again, another dude. My boy played against him in high school. Said in the state semifinals they were losing Deshaun Stephenson's team by 20 points, and he said that there was a dude on the squad, a young dude who was still playing hard at the end. My man said he was a senior, he's on the bench, whatever. Man, it was a break. It seemed like a one-on-one break. So this guy's gotten back. The young boy trying to show him he gets in his stance or whatever, and so he goes back, and the dude that's coming at him throws the ball up. and my man turns around and doesn't realize what's going on. He wasn't throwing it up. He was throwing it off the glass. And they're trying to tell him he's throwing it off the glass. And by the time he realized that, he turned around to Deshaun Stephenson. They said that you could see Buddy's face through Deshaun Stevenson's shorts, like on the other side. That's how nasty it was, what wound up happening to him. And that's nasty on a number of levels. That's the same thing with Lance. And I have to say, I'm at a point now where I feel like any team that gets into playoffs and is going to play against the Cavs should be allowed to sign Lance Stephenson. Just so we can get more of this. Like, the basketball of it been pretty intriguing, but you tell me right now, what's more interesting? Watching Victor Oladipo be very good at basketball, or watching LeBron James be highly annoyed by Lance Stephenson? So in the last week or so, there have been a couple of stories involving allegations of domestic violence against NFL players that I think are worth us talking about now on this show. Because on one of them, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with it. On the other one, I feel like I have a pretty clear idea what I'm supposed to do with it. Yet the two situations, I suppose one could argue, have a measure of similarity. Now, last week, Reuben Foster of the San Francisco 49ers was indicted on felony counts of domestic violence, an incident involving his girlfriend, where she alleged that he grabbed her by the hair, pulled her outside. I think he said punched her in the face like 10 times. She had called 911. The allegation is one that involves a story that seems to be pretty horrific. The 49ers have not released Foster. They've decided that they're going to keep him. And in fact, let me make sure I get this exact quote here for you for what the 49ers say they are going to do with regards to Foster, because I do feel like the way they have put this is a bit unsettling. And they say, the headline here is, John Lynch, Reuben Foster will be cut if proven he hit a woman. And this is what John Lynch says. He says, I'm not at liberty to go in depth on this because it's an ongoing legal process and we're going to respect that. I do have a couple of thoughts. Speaking for Jed and Kyle, owner and coach, and speaking for the York family, as you all know, and as our release indicated, we take the gravity of these charges extremely seriously. We do feel like patience is the right approach. We're going to learn things through this legal process. But I want to be abundantly clear, if these charges are proven true, if Reuben did hit this young lady, he won't be part of this organization going forward. Now, it's worth noting that Reuben Foster is really good. It's also worth noting that Reuben Foster is really good. Everybody knew Reuben Foster would be a really good NFL player, and he still went in the 30s in the draft. It was the infamous red flags with him. And on the list of red flags was getting into it and getting kicked out of the combine. Remember that? He was like waiting in line and they had some issue with the people that were working there, and he got sent home from the combine.
Yeah, he got into it with the doctor.
Right.
And he failed a drug test too.
Right. Like, it's all these things that scream out, hey, this is a guy that you can't necessarily trust. And now we're here. Now, where I find this to be interesting, at least with the 49ers saying that we will, we'll cut him if it is proven that he hit a woman. Normally, the standard is whether or not you're worth the stress. And maybe they've determined that Foster himself is worth the stress. But even if you don't believe that he hit this woman, how many things stack up with somebody before you're just like, hey, no. This is not something that we can do. The 49ers seem to have made the call that, hey, this guy is really, 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 really good. And we are going to cross our fingers and we are going to hold out all hope that maybe, just maybe, we can get our linebacker. Maybe, just maybe. While he's saying they're waiting on proof that he hit this woman, she got a ruptured eardrum. What are you waiting on? Right now, yeah, granted, there's probably more as it relates to the court of law and everything else. So I'm not saying throw the dude in jail. I'm saying that if a woman has alleged that you have beaten her and then she has a ruptured eardrum, like, what do you think? Do you think she did it herself? Like, what exactly do you think it is that happened here in this situation? I find it somewhat indefensible that Foster is still on the roster, because it seems to me to be pretty clear that teams have not needed to wait this long for other things. And keep in mind, this is a team that, regardless of what you say about what happened with them and Kaepernick or whatever and Eric Reed, both of those dudes are out of there. Like, neither of them got released necessarily, but neither one of them was invited to come back. And last year, the 49ers made the decision that they would rather have Brian Hoyer be their quarterback than have Colin Kaepernick be that quarterback. And it's fair to question how much of that has to do. I don't care if Jed York gave $1 million to the cause at the time. They decided that Kaepernick, in large part, was not worth the stress. How they've made the decision that Foster is worth the stress, given all the concerns they had on the back end going into this, what proof are you waiting on? Are they just simply saying the only way that we'll release him is if there's a conviction? Because I thought the one thing that we learned in this is we can't just ride out on convictions. The NFL, and the reason they have this whole policy is the public decided that the standard of the court of law was not sufficient for them. They wanted the NFL and the standard for the NFL to be a standard that is actually above the law, which I don't really have a problem with necessarily, because like simply following the law, it's fair to say, is a low bar. That's what they said this policy and all of this stuff was supposed to be. What are they doing now?
We need more information.
Yeah.
That's what John Lynch said. We need more information.
Well, they say he's not going to play until this thing gets to be resolved. And guys, we know enough about the NFL, man. If you can't play until the thing is resolved, they just crossing their fingers and hoping they get lucky. Because other guys get to play while they're trying to figure this stuff out, right? If you really believe that it's a matter of, well, we're not sure what's going on, then you don't stop them from playing. You don't stop them from coming to team activities. If that's what you really believe. I feel like they're just crossing their fingers and hoping this all just works out. And I look at it and I'm just like, damn, what in the world are we doing? Think about this one. Johnny Manziel, right? And this attempt to come back to the league. Nobody brings up in the course of his attempts to come back to the league, I believe that a woman also accused him of busting her eardrum in the course of this. Right. Like every time that the league says that they care about this, every time somebody says they've got some understanding on it or that they care, you look up and you're like, do you really? Like, is this actually your concern, or is it only a concern in the presence of some level of videotape? Because, again, I don't see how it is that Reuben Foster is on this team. And it's actually funny. Our buddy Jim Trotter works the NFL Network now. He used to work at ESPN. And he had sent some tweet about how at the time the plan was for Reuben Foster to attend OTAs. And I was like, there's no chance he's going to be there for OTAs. And Jim says, well, they don't want to deal with the grievance if that happens. I was like, look, never forget. Training camp started before Michael Vick got indicted in 2007. Guess who wasn't at camp? Why? You hot right now. You can't be here right now. Yeah, you're talking about a grievance. No, man, you just can't come. And then what do you know? 49ers found a way to be like, hey, man, you just can't come here. You just can't do that. No. Does that sound like a team that thinks this dude is innocent? Does that sound like a team that feels like this dude is getting railroaded? No, this sounds like a team that's just hoping that they can get over. And that feels a bit problematic. Consider the way they handled Alden Smith for all the time that they had him.
Ray McDonald.
Oh, I forgot about
Tremaine
Ray McDonald.
Brock, Bruce Miller.
Ooh, yeah. They seem to just keep rolling, right? They just seem to keep rolling on this. And so I'm looking at them like, why don't you let him go? But here's where these things do get complex. Let's look at the case of David Irving, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys. And David Irving's girlfriend got on Twitter and accused him of assaulting her. And after she made this accusation, the police in the Dallas suburb that they lived in went to talk to David Irving on these counts of assault. David Irving's girlfriend has subsequently said that she made all of it up, that she was mad, and so she just decided to do this. And my bad. Or something to that effect. And Irving is like dramatically on the social media with pictures of him changing the locks and everything else because he said that she did this because he kicked her out because she was cheating. All this. Like it's a wild situation that they have going there. But she has recanted the allegations. And so people are largely inclined to say, okay, well, nothing was here. Except I got a question for you. With all this stuff that's happened, I felt like, and I mean macro level in terms of our greater awareness of these issues surrounding violence against women, right? And it is important, I understand, kind of, I don't know, strategically is the right word, but to believe women when they make these allegations, because it is highly unlikely that a woman is going to make up an allegation about being beaten. And even when a woman retracts an allegation about being beaten, raise the question as to why it is that a woman would do such a thing, right? Why would she retract the allegation? Perhaps it's the need to stay in the house. You don't have the money to move, whatever it is, fear, all of these things. There's all these questions that we have to ask here. So what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Like with this thing with Irving, what am I supposed to do? Keeping in mind what I said about the Reuben Foster thing. People have wanted and people have desired for the standard of the NFL to be one that is higher than simply the standard of the law. We have asked the NFL to investigate these matters. And people are like, NFL should have never gotten into this. Maybe not, but people ask for it. Like, don't act for a second as though there wasn't a clamoring for these things to happen. And so, like, is the NFL going to investigate this? Are they going to get into it or whatever it is? What are they going to find? I don't know. But I'm trying to reconcile what happened here with Irving with our newfound awareness of how we are supposed to handle these things. Now, again, the woman recanted her allegations, so I understand the idea of, okay, you know, we can keep it moving. But they've been doing this for a long time. They've been together since high school. They had a child, and she moved to Ames, Iowa, when he was at Iowa State to live with him while he was there. And guess what happened while he was in Ames, Iowa? The date, November 16th, 2013, the publication, the Iowa State Daily, the student newspaper at Iowa State. Here's the lead. Angela Sanchez said she and ISU defensive lineman David Irving had been arguing for several weeks leading up to Wednesday's incident, which ended with Irving being arrested and charged with domestic assault. So this is the second time the same dude has been accused of beating the same woman. And this story that she gave, where she talked to the reporters from the paper, the allegation is fairly thorough. Right, so here she is explaining why she did not call the police, because she said that her mother made a welfare call and that's when the cops came. I never did, because he's the father of my child. I loved him. I didn't really want all this to happen. I didn't want him to go to jail. I know what would happen if this got out. He's going to lose his football career and be in prison. I don't want that. That quote right there is the one that we point to very often when we talk about victims of domestic violence as to why it is that they stay and why it is that they don't call the police. Like, that is textbook, the thing that you fear and the thing that you worry about. And she alleges that she started going through his phone. They have phone issues as a couple, but she started going through his phone because she thought that he was cheating on him. And then somebody tried to leave and couldn't leave. And he threatened that if you didn't get out the way, that I'm going to cut your hair. And so he went and got a pair of scissors per her allegation and then cut her hair. And then she alleged that he said, if you don't move, I'm going to cut your hand with those scissors. And then he cut her hand. Like, this is what the allegation is that she has here. Like, you can Google this up. It is a lot that's going on here. It is very thorough what we have here. And then eventually the charges got dropped. One way or another, the charges got dropped. Now, I read this here as I read it, and you would never believe that she had made this up. You never would. And again, they have a volatile relationship. Like, listen to this. He said, when he returned again, Sanchez said she was sleeping at the neighbor's apartment. She said Irving came over after realizing his clothes had been ripped up. Sanchez said Irving told her not to come back over to the apartment because she had crossed the line by ripping up his clothes. Later, Sanchez returned to the apartment. He socked me a couple of times in both of my legs and my arm, and that was it. I went back over to the neighbor's apartment. Again, this is an allegation from 2013. So I ask you again, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, as observer, someone in the business that I work in, what am I supposed to do with this? As the NFL, what are you supposed to do with this? And I think that you look at these two cases, and this is where it gets to be interesting. To me, the Foster one is pretty cut and dry. To me, the Irving one is a bit more complicated. Even though the Irving one involves a woman saying, no, this is actually not what happened. What am I supposed to do? I'll tell you what the Cowboys are going to do, though. The Cowboys are quick on it. We know their game on this. Didn't happen. Moving on. They made the decision to take him in the first place in spite of the other thing. Maybe they've looked into it and they've decided that there was nothing to it before. And maybe they look into it and they've decided that there's nothing to it now. I don't really have any idea what it is. But as much this woman has recanted this, and his friends are in her Instagram comments talking about, I told you not to deal with her. I told you she was crazy. They found her old tweets talking about I'm a psycho and and like all these different things they're supposed to do. And it's all there. And I have no idea what exactly I'm supposed to do with this. And I got to say, I'm glad I don't work at the NFL, because if we've learned anything else, they don't have any idea what to do with this either. The difference between me and the NFL, though, they got in the business of claiming to know what to do with this. Clearly, as a league, from individual teams all the way up to the home office, they still have no idea what to do with it. We barely have any idea how to talk about it. Barely. But one thing we could at least try to do on some level is be like intellectually and ideologically consistent about these things. And we are not. We are not. Greg Hardy, understandably, will carry the allegation of beating a woman for the rest of his life. Of course, we have photographs with that, so that was like a totally different one. He will understandably and deservedly carry that whole thing around the rest of his life. Johnny Manziel tries to put on a comeback tour. We act like that thing never happened. Reuben Foster walks in with red flags galore. his team is like, well, hold on now. Let's just see what happened. David Irvin is going to be playing for the Cowboys, and that woman that's with him will probably be at the game cheering him on every time he plays. And I have no idea what to make of any of those things, individually or in total.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. No need for the social media feeds. We got you. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Bomani. Lots of news coming out this past week from the music industry. Our first has to deal with Kanye.
Hi, this is Matthew Strauss. I'm an associate editor at Pitchfork. Recently, Kanye West returned to Twitter after an 11-month absence, and now he's making headlines left and right. Last week, Kanye said that he's releasing a new album on June 1st. The only hints he's provided about the project are that he's producing it himself and that it's 7 tracks long. Kanye also said that he and Kid Cudi are releasing an album together under the name Kids See Ghost. It's a phrase that Kanye filed a trademark application for back in November of last year, coincidentally, just a few days before Kid Cudi brought him out to perform together in Chicago. That album is out on June 8th, according to Kanye. Since then, Kanye has said that he's producing albums for Pusha T, out May 25th, Tiana Taylor, out June 22nd, and Nas, out June 15th. Kanye seems particularly excited about the Nas album, tweeting, "I feel like I'm 18 years old again when I make beats for Nas."
Look, man, all that sounds really, really, really exciting. A Kanye Nas album, keeping in mind that Nas's biggest problem his whole career is his inability to pick beats. And when he's worked with people that got strong beats, he puts out heat. That sounds fantastic. Now, Kanye, can you please shut up and let me be excited about it instead of talking about other stuff? Like, Kanye gets out on the internet and starts talking about other stuff, and it's just like, bruh, like, I fully understand now the argument that I've heard from many people in situations where they're just like, I sure wish this person would just stop talking so that we could spend the night. Like, you're going to talk yourself out of this. And that is what Kanye just insists upon doing all the time. Now, to be fair, I feel like if you get really mad at something Kanye West says, it is your fault. You did it to yourself. Like, I don't look for Kanye to say anything serious. Therefore, I do not take him seriously. So I don't really hold him to the standards of other people, that like people I want to take seriously. Yeah, Kanye gets out here talking reckless. It's not new. I get it. I don't need to like you to like your music. You know what I mean? I don't require that. That being said, do the Kanye Nas album. Seriously. Kanye Nas album. He went up there because he was in Wyoming, right, Gabe? He was in Jackson Hole doing all that stuff for all that time.
If you're going to Jackson Hole, you're going off the radar.
Yeah, but he was flying everybody in. Like, that was the thing. He was at Jackson Hole and, setting up. Because, like when they did Watch the Throne, they did it in hotel rooms all over the place, right? And they were just flying people in to work with him. He did the same thing in Jackson Hole where it's just like, yo, Kanye's in Wyoming. Wow, more people flying to Wyoming. Wow, more people flying to Wyoming, which I don't think I'd ever do. But more people flying to Wyoming, more people flying to Wyoming. If we get some heat out of this Wyoming thing, it'll be great. I just gonna have to mute that dude on the Twitter because he's not helping the cause. And mad as everybody getting at Kanye for everything that he says. Yeah, you say you're not gonna listen to the Kanye Nas album. Psh, I am.
Our second story of the day is also from the music industry. It's about R. Kelly.
This is Emily Stewart from Vox. R. Kelly's lawyer, publicist, and longtime assistants have all severed ties with him within the past few days and weeks. And their decisions to quit come not too long after the release of a BBC documentary that examines a lot of the allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse against him that have come up in recent years. The documentary came out in March, and it covers a lot of the allegations about him. The lawyer and publicist and the assistant haven't really come out and said that the documentary or allegations about him are why they quit, but timing's obviously conspicuous. If you remember, R. Kelly has quite a history with allegations of sexual misconduct. In 2017, BuzzFeed ran a big expose about him, saying that he was holding all these women against their will in a sex cult, and a lot of women have come forward with stories about him. Obviously, in the 1990s, he married Aaliyah when she was 15 and he was in his 20s, and then that tape came out years later of him urinating on a young girl when he was obviously of age. It's also worth noting that this is not the first time that someone around Kelly has quit over his sexual misconduct. In 2000, his longtime manager, Barry Hankerson, resigned. And in a letter to Kelly's attorney, said that he thought that the singer needed psychiatric help for compulsion to pursue underage girls.
When you wake up in 2018 and you're like, yo, I don't think I can work with R. Kelly anymore. Why not? This documentary came out. Did you hear about that stuff? No, dude, I was like, wait, what, really? What are you talking about? Like, no. Okay, because as I was talking about with Kanye, I said, I don't need to like you to like your music, right? And I feel like all of us make trades on some level with certain artists, right? Some of them we draw an absolute line on, like, no, this person's personal life is in such a way that I cannot support them in any way whatsoever. But, like, I'm honest about this, man. I read a story in Rolling Stone once about James Brown, and it involved one thing I remember from the story was it was his daughter said she walked in and James Brown was on top of her mother and just beating her. And I remember hearing that, and I was like, this raises an interesting question, because this is horrific. This seems to be the work of a horrible man. And I'm not deleting the James Brown files. I'm not doing it, right? People have done this with Miles Davis. We have all kinds of people that we could point to. People, y'all making that trade with Led Zeppelin, was that Beastie Boys line? Like Jimmy Page, I like my girls underage. Everybody's got a certain measure of trade that they wind up making with these artists. Where the R. Kelly thing gets to be different is he's singing you songs about the stuff that he's out here doing that's problematic, right? Like, is that there is no separating the man from the art. You can't do it. You can't separate them. You can't separate Seems Like You're Ready from the stuff that we read about him. You just, like, there's no division that you could possibly have between the two. Like, if you decide that R. Kelly's your one that you're going to make exceptions for, hey, again, I believe that everybody does, so I'm not inclined to be such a finger wagger on it, except I don't understand how you can do this. You know what this is about. He is not singing to you, 45-year-old woman. You know he's not. You know what he's singing to. You know what he's singing about. And so you working with R. Kelly, I mean, on one level, it's like everybody needs a job. I don't know why you need that one necessarily. But how do you just pop up now and just be like, yo, man, can't do it anymore. It's gone too far. They're not telling you about new stuff as much as they've been telling you about old stuff. People are strange, man.
All right, our last story of the day comes from the tech world.
My name is Haley Tsukayama. I'm a reporter with the Washington Post. Along with my colleague Jeffrey Fowler, we wrote a story about how e-scooters are becoming a menace in cities across the country. Electronic scooters are very similar to the Razor scooters that were popular in the 2000s, but they have a little motor. Then, like a dockless bike sharing program, the idea is that you can check out a scooter for a fairly cheap price, ride it to where you're going, and then just leave it for the next person to check out. The problem is that people have been jerks about using these scooters. They're riding them on the sidewalks when they're not supposed to. They're leaving them in the middle of intersections, strewn across sidewalks, which has been a problem for pedestrians, particularly for people who are in wheelchairs who have trouble getting through anyway. The negative consequence of this illustrates how tech companies still aren't sort of thinking through the problems that come with a move fast and break things attitude. And we're starting to see some backlash to that. Certainly people here in San Francisco have been saying one reason that they are trashing the scooters is because they want to get back at the tech bros. This also shows that cities haven't quite figured out how to deal with innovation from, that sort of thoughtless innovation from companies. And, in a lot of cases, there aren't existing laws to regulate sort of vehicles like these scooters. And so they're having to work with the companies right now to figure out a way to make it work for everybody. Many cities have impounded scooters. So we'll have to see as they continue to work whether they can figure out a way to make scooters part of a regular traffic flow.
You know what I think is interesting about this? Haley said that the problem is that people are being jerks with the scooters. No, that's not the problem. Problem is those scooters are attractive to jerks.
When are you getting a scooter, Bomani?
No, man, I'm not going to be that guy, man. I'm not going to be that guy. Like, I remember I was reading that story and I was hearing this stuff and I'm like, no. The problem is the lazy people that are out here getting on these scooters like this, they are people who are inclined to be jerks. You know who they are? They're the people who stand on the moving sidewalk. You lazy bum. Use your legs and go. It's not even like walking. It's like walking on a cloud. It guides you down the way. Standing on the left, you on the right, your bag on the left because you too lazy to walk. That is who the scooter is attractive to. These people who are just lazy. Lazy, I tell you, lazy. They just leave them in the middle of an intersection because that's what lazy people do. They just leave stuff right where it is. Speaking of which, my bedroom has socks all over the place. But I'm just saying, this is what lazy people do. This is all this is.
Have you seen the pictures on social media of all the scooters just strewn across the sidewalk?
Yes, I have.
People tripping over them.
Well, the other part I thought was interesting. Haley said that people are destroying the scooters, they said, because they're tired of the tech bros in San Francisco. And my question is, on that, who exactly are the people who are tired of the tech bros and are then smashing up their stuff as a result? Like, it's not as though San Francisco has this huge rough and tumble population that is a little bit tired of the bourgeoisie in the way they are comporting themselves. San Francisco is almost entirely the bourgeoisie. Like, if the tech bros are on one side, I want to know what the delegation is of people on the other side who are out there destroying their scooters. I want to know where the war is, where are the lines being drawn.
Yeah, whatever contingency that is, it's very small at this point in San Francisco.
I cannot wait for the scooter wars. Can you imagine, Gabe, if people try to do the scooter thing here in New York? It's not happening.
So I was going to ask that question again. So no scooter for you, Bomani.
No. Let me tell you, these sidewalks are a little too packed. These sidewalks are a little too packed, and I don't really know so much about San Francisco, but A, somebody is good to, like, put their hands on you behind something like that here, and B, they'll steal your scooter. Feel pretty confident.
I mean, the fact that scooters can be on the sidewalk, just laid out there, and no one's taking them, and taking them for a joyride.
Right.
You know, I guess says a lot about San Francisco and the type of person that lives there at this point.
It ain't happening here. I tell you that right now. You leave it on the sidewalk, you don't even turn your back. It's a wrap. Gone. All right, now, ordinarily here, we like to wrap up our show on Tuesday with your voicemails, taking your questions or your stories or whatever it is. But in this particular case, we're working with something a little bit different. April 21st, 2016, Prince died. As many of you know, I am like the big super duper Prince fan. And it seems like, what's the word? I would be remiss if I did not do a bit of a retrospective of sorts on Prince, life, all of that stuff. Now, some of you remember, I was in Paris when Prince died. I had gone over there to do an interview for Playboy with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I'll always remember I'd seen the reports that were coming out that they had sent an emergency crew to Paisley Park or whatever it was. And I knew somebody that would probably know what was going on. And so I put in the word. And, I'd found out before the world had found out that he was dead. And so I made phone calls to people I thought needed to know that before it got out, because I knew that was going to be like a major thing for some people. And so I'm there and I'm in Paris and I'm there for Playboy. And so I hit them up and I'm like, look, you want me to write something on Prince? I'll get on it now. And so, like, I think I took maybe an hour and it was just bang that bad boy out. Because it's one of those things. Sometimes when you write something, you don't realize until you're done that maybe you've been waiting, that you've been preparing your whole life to do this. And that was one of those for me with Prince, is that apparently everything that I had done was to prepare me for the time or the possibility that in 1 hour I was going to need to do a retrospective on the whole thing. And like, it was wild because I'm out the country and almost like I felt like I needed to be around people. My brother was in London. Like, I remember we were FaceTiming and it was such a wild thing for us to put together. How crazy it was that he's in London and I'm in Paris. And we're talking about Prince dying, which is something that we never thought could happen. As I think I may have written in the piece, I never thought he'd do anything that was that ordinary. And so it's been 2 years since Prince died. And it's been the one thing that's been fun, if nothing else, to watch after Prince died is watching how many people have like gone back through the catalog, realized they were sleeping, or how many people that were always on board, fully getting in touch with the fact of how much they loved the music, how much music there was, how broad it was, and everything else. So a couple of days ago, the estate released his studio version of Nothing Compares to You. First of all, let's stop and take a moment to appreciate the fact that this dude has so much heat that he could do Nothing Compares to You and just give it to somebody else. Right? Like 1984 Prince is cranking out so much heat that version of Nothing Compares to You to hit the streets, he could hear that and just be like, yeah, doesn't really fit the album. Anybody else want it? And then give it to somebody else. But then in classic Prince fashion, once Sinead O'Connor did it and it became a big song and it became like her defining song, then he started playing it in concert because he wanted everybody to recognize that this was, in fact, his song. You realize he wrote that in an hour? As Susanna Melvoin said, that he just basically coughed it out. In 1 hour, he wrote one of the best love songs that any of us have ever heard. And who knows how many more of those are just laying around in this mythical vault. And I'll give credit to the estate. the estate has not put out stuff haphazardly and willy-nilly as I would have expected. They've been pretty judicious on putting this stuff out. And this was one that we were like, oh, we want this. Yeah. We want this. We want it. And we got it. And it's perfect. Like, it's pristine and it is gritty at the same time somehow. And it is absolutely perfect. But the dude's gone, man. Like this, like every time we come around, like one of these anniversaries of Prince being dead, it's just like, yo, I cannot believe that Prince is dead. Prince and David Bowie died within 2 months of each other. And it's kind of crazy to consider that Bowie is dead, but it's really crazy to consider the idea that Prince is dead, especially at the point where he died. Like David Bowie died at an age where we thought that he would die. And he died of something that we could see killing people. Did we think that like Prince would wind up dead off the drugs, like not drugs in some old just say no sort of sense, but like in this decidedly human way that people all over the place get strung out on these pain pills and everything else? Like there was no way that any of us would have ever seen that as what it was going to be. And it was at this point where I felt like he'd hit this real comfortable rhythm on what it was that he wanted to be as an elder statesman of sorts, which I'm sure if he were here would slap me in the face for calling him an elder statesman. But like I went to see him in 2013 on the tour with Third Eye Girl, where he's out there with the, I think it was the Les Paul that he was playing with. But it was a rock band, right? It was a gritty, straight-ahead rock band. I went and saw him either a year or two later, and he was doing the Essence Festival, which is a much blacker show than he was doing when I go see him in Las Vegas. And he was killing that one, and he did Purple Rain at the end, and he's still killing that solo. And you know he didn't want to play it for the longest time because he was trying to move past it. But at some point he got comfortable with our love for the things that he had done, and maybe work a little new stuff in there or whatever it was. But like we were at a place now where he was comfortably making new stuff while being in the right position on the old stuff. There was this one day that I had gone to work at ESPN. I was in Bristol, and I wore this T-shirt that it wound up being a thing. And then I got out of town because I was going to see Prince that night in Atlanta. And that was the show that he canceled. And it was just Prince. And this is the one thing I was like, man, I wish I'd have been there for that. It was the piano and microphone tour where he was going through the whole catalog, just playing it on the piano, unaccompanied, by himself. And that was like the one show I'd always wanted to see Prince do, was just one by himself, like something of that level of intimacy. And I was so mad. And then he rescheduled it for the next week. And I was just like, damn, I can't do this again. Like I can't go up there to see this. And I don't think that quite qualifies as regret, but damn, I wish I would have been there for that one. Absolutely wish I would have been there just to see that. But this is the coldest dude that there was, man. Like, he's not James Brown in that sense, right? Like, he's not like that, the performer like James Brown. And it wasn't a level of international stardom and making people fall out on sight in the way that Michael Jackson did it. Like, Michael Jackson felt totally untouchable. Prince was like you could be in the room even if you knew you couldn't get that close. And even if you got that close, he might say something crazy to you, but you let it slide because it happens to be Prince. Because God knows we let Prince slide on a million different things. We know this. But in these 2 years that have passed and all the time I've spent going back and listening to all that music, because I've gone through all of it since he died. Yo, man, we were not exaggerating. This dude was that dude. That dude might have been the greatest recording artist that there has ever been. And if it's possible to miss somebody I never met, that is where we remain. But all right, yeah, from time to time we'll do this. We can talk about artists, we can talk about albums, all kinds of stuff from time to time. It's a podcast now. I don't have to worry about the radio programmers being mad that we're having a little bit too much fun. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We release these podcasts twice a week. We are going to put one out on Thursday. Want to thank all the folks who contributed to If You Haven't Heard. Thanks to Matthew Strauss, the editor at Pitchfork. Check out his story on Kanye and his new records coming out on pitchfork.com. Thanks to Emily Stewart of Vox.com for helping us out with her story on R. Kelly. And thanks to Haley Tsukiyama of the Washington Post. We're talking about these lazy people riding around on these scooters. The Right Time is produced by Gabe Bassin. My man, thank you. I will talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.
Thanks for checking out The Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast.
You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.